Most of the people that I know who are serious professors hate giving grades. I hate it. It's the most detestable part of my... There I am, I've barely met a student over a semester, given a bunch of lectures, read a few little exam questions, hysterically written by an over-panicked young person who's probably imbibed all sorts of substances in the preceding 24 hours, etc., present company accepted. And I'm supposed to give them a grade, an A or a B. You know, that's like sorting potatoes. There's an A potato and a B potato. This one has little knobbly things on it, so it's not an A potato. I'm not in the business of potato grading. And who is that for? And the answer is it's for the employers. And it's for the employers to know who to hire. I'm the first grid. You know, you perform nicely, so you're an A. You don't perform, you're a B. You really perform lousy, you're a D. That's it. That's help to the employer. I don't want to help the employer. That's not what I signed up for. I'm not interested in this. And there's even worse, this meritocracy, fakery that we do in this society. That is a scandal, and a cruel one. We don't have enough jobs in this country for the people who are perfectly capable of filling them. We got a problem. Way too many people with good skills for the jobs we produce. Now, the rational solution would be to find the jobs, to give them a chance to do what they want to do and they can do. We don't do that. We have no way of doing that. We're not driven by providing people with work. That's Mondragon. We're driven by making money. So we don't want these people. But it's very dangerous. They want an education and they got one. So now they want the job. But we don't have the jobs. How do you solve this problem? A's and B's and C's and Harvards and the local community college. Because it allows us to say, we got jobs for you, but not for you, and you. But that's not because of anything wrong with the system. It's because of you. You went to school. You got a grade at a school. So don't blame the system. It's you. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't go to enough school. You didn't take that extra course. You didn't take the Princeton prep to get your SAT scores up. You know the horrible routine. But the cruelty is you're blaming the individual for a failure of a system to make use of its resources, of its people. And so people get very down on themselves. And they spend the rest of their life feeling really inferior. Very, very cruel way to not solve a problem in a rational way. All that would have to stop. You'd have to really reorganize education. And as someone who has watched this cruelty play out on 10 generations of students, it is awful to watch. My colleagues who are not, as you might have guessed, I am not on the right-wing end of politics. But my colleagues, some of whom are, and others who are in the middle, one of the few things we could always agree upon was that there is the problem with our graduate students was never their capability. It was mostly their sense of their own capability. They actually had the ability, they just didn't believe it. And by the time they got to us, that was so deep in them not to believe in it, that it was a self-fulfilling kind of belief. Very tragic. You know, most people who begin a PhD program in the United States never finish it, the majority. And that's not because they don't have the capacity. It has nothing to do with it. No correlation at all between the capabilities shown when the student enters and the probability of their completion. None. We've done that work. None. These are psychological problems. The most important thing that an economics graduate program in the United States could ever have is a full-time professional shrink. Would be the best thing that could happen to the students I'm very serious. It's the best thing that could happen to the students. The success ratio would go way up. The quality of the program. Very serious issue. So I'm glad you asked the question. It's about a dramatic change in the education that will have to happen. How much more do we have time for? Last one, okay.
I'm going to make it a very quick question because this is election season, and given that we're in a system that precludes systemic critique, Occupy protest notwithstanding, to vote or not to vote?
Well, as I drove down here, which, by the way, since I come from New York City, I do have to say in all honesty, we don't have traffic as horrific as I just had driving from San Francisco. I sat on 101 for an interminable amount of time. Incredible. Anyway, as I was sitting in my car, I had the bad luck to listen to the Democratic National Convention speeches, which were an exercise in BS, to be as polite as I can, about this. There's not only no systemic critique, there's no alternative. The solutions offered are more of what they've done. They're pretending that it's been wonderfully successful because they're the president, just like the other guys had to claim it was a big disaster. First of all, the politics in this country is a very peculiar institution. Let me close with that because it's really important. The United States is unique in the world, I think, for the following. We have been the most successful in convincing the American people of something that's patently absurd. And that is that when they have an economic problem, it's the fault of the government. It's stunning. 95% of the people who've lost their job in this crisis, and there are millions of them, were fired by a private capitalist employer. If you're going to get angry at somebody because of unemployment, the logical target is the company that fired you, not in America. Our people are trained. They leap over the company that fired them to the politician, the senator or the congressperson, whom they're very angry at, who had absolutely nothing to do with it. The overwhelming majority of people who've been foreclosed out of their homes were foreclosed by a private capitalist bank or lender. And who were they angry at? Politicians. What? Just the best possible system for capitalists. You kick the mass of people, they get angry at somebody else. If you kick them again, they get more angry at somebody else. You are exempt. This is stunning. How did you do this? And then there's this general blame the government. Blame the government. The government is the problem. Why do I say it's patently absurd? George Bush, our president, do you remember him? That one who disappeared for the Republican National Convention? Must have gone fishing. George Bush vanished, but he and the Republican Party had every interest in making sure that the last 6 months of his presidency were not a time of economic collapse, because what it would mean is that the Republicans would be run out of office on a rail, which they were. And his political leadership was unable to do anything about it. They rode Bush out of office. Obama rode in because Bush couldn't stop the economic crisis. Mr. Obama may be ridden out of office for the same reason. Because he, with all of his clever advisors, has been unable to solve this crisis. So don't tell me the politicians are in control. Clearly, if they were in control, they wouldn't possibly do what they're doing. That's all they can do. And the reason they can is because the separate decision-making is in the hands of the corporations who make all these basic decisions for their own reason and in their own competitive struggles. But this notion of the government, and then the blaming the government for everything, it makes the people angry at the government. And why would that be interesting? That goes back to something I said to you before, and it's a good way to end. The danger of politics in capitalist systems is that when the mass of people are screwed bad enough in the economy, they're going to turn to politics to try to undo what happens to them in the economy. In the economy, They are dependent. Their jobs disappear. Their income is shrunk. All the suffering that we know of. And they're going to turn to politics where it's one person, one vote. Maybe they have a chance to compensate, to undo the economic disaster they're suffering by a political intervention. The business community long ago understood you got to deal with that. It's a very old understanding. If fewer and fewer people become richer and richer, they've got to worry that the mass of people that are excluded from this enjoyment are going to get angry, and they're going to try to use politics. Solution: control the politics, neutralize the politics. The American training, the government stinks, they're all crooks. These are ways to even keep people away from the political engagement that might otherwise give them a way forward in this situation. Very dangerous, very strange. So, my response: we're stuck. We got two terrible problems. We don't have proportional representation, which is a staggering contradiction with democracy, just like the way we run our businesses is. And secondly, we've got Tweedledum and Tweedledee as the two parties who exchange positions every few years, and we sit there, and with each convention, like the last week and today, by the way, the reason there aren't more people here is they were at home watching Barack Obama, right? So tough competition for me. So we have to do something to break out of a system that doesn't allow minority parties to have a voice the way they do in all of our allied countries, and to have more than the choice of two. You know, if you went into your local supermarket and there were two kinds of soup, chicken and rice, and two companies that made them, Campbell's and Progresso, you'd feel as though this was not a very good store. You'd like more choice. We want 27 kinds of toothpaste and 16 kinds of soup and 12 kinds of ice cream, but two parties is enough. What is that? What is that? Why two? What is there a magic number? It's a strange country. Doesn't want more choice than two. Even if it's hard to tell them apart, you don't want more than two. It's very strange. But the whole politics is handled here as a bizarre kind of excuse. And the contradictions are legion. The same politician that you mock and that you call a crook, when he sends your kid to war, you go and you stand at the parade. The same politician is a great commander-in-chief. He was a rotten crook last week. So when it comes to the foreign, the contradictions here, if he was a crook at home, maybe he's a crook abroad too. It's possible. Very strange. All of that has to be opened and questioned. But my conclusion is, it's happening. And again, I'll use myself. People like me are on Charlie Rose. And I'm traveling all over the country. I do 1, 2, 3 radio and television programs almost every day. And I turn down as many as I get because I can't physically do it. But and the only sad thing is I wish there were a lot more of me around. But I'm part of a generation that didn't produce very many of me, since it wasn't what Harvard, Stanford, or Yale was interested in. Made plenty of good economists, but not with a critical perspective. No one helped them do that, and it wasn't good for your career, so it didn't go that way. But this country is changing, and I'm really am living proof. My audience is bigger than anything. In the last 2 years, I've done more public speaking than in the previous 40, and I've always been active. But it's just completely different. Now, a critique of capitalism is an acceptable part of what people want to hear. It's not that they necessarily agree yet. No. But it's part of the conversation. It used to be outside, beyond the pale, too scary. That's gone. That's just gone. Whatever you're worried or thinking about the Tea Parties and what they represent, sure, they're there. They represent a point of view. But on the other end of the spectrum, the change has been at least as profound. And so it's a wonderful time for folks like me, because we have audience in the United States we have never had in at least half a century. and it's therefore a time of extraordinary opportunity. We've taken more of your time than we should have. Thanks again.